Hey there guys and girls, Mantis here and welcome back to another video. So today we've got some good news for you. We are still getting changes to professions on the beta. I know, this is crazy. We're literally only, 10 days away now from the game going live, and technically the game should have already been out by this point. But yes, we are still getting profession changes. Now these are ones that are being, like all too often, being completely slipped in under the radar. But they are making some pretty dramatic changes, and yes, by the title of this video and the thumbnail, you know what's going on. It's Enchanting. I made a video a couple of weeks ago. I'll leave that link in the description down below if you're really interested. But a couple of weeks ago, I reported that Enchanting was just broken. Not broken in a completely exploitable game-breakingly leveled broken, but just broken from a really poorly designed system. It used to be previously that you could take dust, convert the dust into crystals, convert the crystals into dust to shards, shards to crystals, and you could go back again, which basically meant that all of the three main materials for enchanting basically might as well have just been one material. There's no real reason to have three of them when any of them could be converted into any others, which left us in this weird sort of situation that we knew full well that people were going to take shrouded cloth, they were going to craft some really cheap, easy to make green tailoring items, they were going to disenchant those items en masse, and then hey presto, they have access to all of the enchanting materials they could ever possibly need. This was kind of weird. It left us in this situation where people were going to have like it just tanked enchanting in general, and nobody wants to see a profession completely crushed into the ground like it potentially was. But what are we talking about today? What is the big change? It's quite simple. They have crushed the ability to allow you to turn one material into the other. No longer can you turn soul dust into sacred shards. No longer can you turn sacred shards into eternal crystals. Now, they have still left some of the process in place. Once you've skilled up your enchanting enough, you get the ability, I believe it's I want to say skill 70, so it's just over halfway, you get the ability to shatter still. Where is it on the list? Eternal shatter, here we go. You can still take an eternal crystal and you can shatter it down into 3 sacred shards. Another big significant change, if any of you have been keeping track of my updates for the professions in the beta, there used to be this weird section when leveling enchanting to the fact that you could just repeat this process multiple times and get like multiple free skill points. The second you learn the shatter is instantly grey. You are never going to gain any skill points by shattering. You still get skill points initially from disenchanting. You can go up to 25 skill points I think when disenchanting, but shattering is no longer going to give you any skill points, meaning that the actual process of leveling enchanting has even got that little bit more complex and quite definitely a lot more costly to do so. If you really do focus with your enchanter, there is also the ability to take those shards and shatter them down to dust. This is locked behind a rep though. This is locked behind Honoured with the Wild Hunt, which is the main faction in Ardenwelm. So if any of you plan to go Night Fae, you're going to pick this up pretty quickly and easily, but it's still only Honoured. And so even if you don't choose to go with the Night Fae, you choose to go with one of the other factions, spend a few days doing world quests in Ardenweld, and you'll likely have enough rep with these guys to pick this up anyway. But this does, I mean, I had a lot of people commenting on my previous video when I claimed that enchanting was broken, saying, well, what's the problem with this? What's the issue? And the issue was very simply that all of the materials and all of the enchants were basically going to bottom out in terms of their price super quickly. As I said, people could disenchant any green item and eventually turn the dust that comes from those green items into what in theory should be the rarest, one of the rarer materials, an eternal crystal. Now there is going to be a lot of scarcity around the eternal crystals. We spent a whole bunch of time on stream today trying to figure out different ways that we could actually now acquire eternal crystals. We only came up with a couple that were potential. We came up with the fact that obviously doing your Mythic Zeros. When you first get into Shadowlands and you're doing your Mythic Zeros, the gear that drops from there is, I want to say, item level 183, but it is epic, and that does mean that if you run through there with your Enchanter, any spare gear, now of course the terminology spare gear from what will be, at least for the first period of time, quite challenging, somewhat endgame content, you might not necessarily come across all that amount of spare gear, but as it stands right now, it's going to be the most reliable source for you to pick up these Eternal Crystals. Disenchanting any spare gear that you don't need. We also came to the conclusion that there might be the chance for when you pick up a quest reward, sometimes it will proc to a higher rarity. If you get really lucky and something procs to epic, then disenchanting that is going to give you crystals, but there's no way to rely on that. That is literally just RNG, and is very unlikely to happen more than a couple of times every once in a while. So it's, once again, there's going to be very few methods of acquiring these Eternal Crystals early game, and it's going to mean that leveling Enchanting is going to be considerably more costly. We did a full re-level of Enchanting. You may notice this isn't our normal Enchanter. We leveled Enchanting right the way through to 115 again, so we could get a categorical idea of exactly how much materials were needed. And for those of you guys that don't want to watch my leveling video that's coming out soon for Enchanting, I'll give you the numbers. It took us 217 dust. It took us 191 shards, and it took us 29 Eternal Crystals to level Enchanting from 0 to 115, and that was without doing any disenchanting. So there is a bit of movement in those numbers because we weren't always getting guaranteed skill points. But even still, that was then close to 30 crystals that we needed just to level Enchanting. Additionally, you may be wondering, why am I still making a big deal of this? One of the main issues that come about from this is base legendary items. We're all aware of the base legendary items. Hopefully by now you guys have got a good idea of how they work. One of the main requirements for the base legendary items is these 3 enchanted variants of the materials. So you've got, if we look here, you've got, where are they on the list? We've got the enchanted Aletheium bar, we've got the enchanted heavy callous hide, and we've got the enchanted lightless silk. These are materials that are going to be needed en masse by your tailors, by your leatherworkers, and by your blacksmiths. And if enchanters are slowed down in their process to get to max skill, thank you Joyful, thanks for the sub. One thing to note is that you do still need to be skill 115 before you can learn these. So slowing down people's progress to maximizing their enchanting skill is going to, in somewhat shape or form, slow down the supply of these on the market, which in turn slows down the speed in which people are able to just blitz through these base legendary items. If you watch my channel for any period of time, you'll be aware that we're quite fond of barriers to entry in some way, shape or form. Slowing down people's ability to go from 0 to 100% is actually quite good for the game, and it makes a more balanced economy long term. It's nobody wants to be in Zerg mode all of the time. There was another thing that we thought of that would be quite valuable when it comes to this, and it basically means that enchanting as a profession has a lot more viability now. Enchanting got into a situation where it was kind of nothing more than just, throw it on an ult, you could level up really quickly. The terminology I sort of used was having a pocket enchanter. So as you know, if any of you are into PvP, sometimes it's kind of cool when you're doing some battlegrounds to run around and have a pocket healer, a dude that's just following you, keeping you alive. Enchanting kind of felt like that for the goblins out there. Everybody was going to have their pocket enchanter. That was then going to be really quick, really easy, really cheap to level up, and they would then be able to basically craft their own enchanted materials. It took an entire section of the game away from the economy, and this change, even though ever so slightly subtle, I hope has brought it back. So then guys, I'll leave you there, I'll leave you with that information. Finally, it's actually some good news about professions. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this change. Do you think do you prefer the system previously? Do you prefer the way that it is now? I love to get your guys' feedback on these sorts of things. It's good to have a discussion on them. But guys, I'll leave it there for that one. Hope you enjoyed. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.